Now, we will have Ms. Sabantho Corrie Edgehill of the Caribbean Amerindian Development Organization. And your question is, could you share some examples of how the wealth of traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples and local communities could be better used to address cultural heritage losses associated with climate change? The floor is yours.
Is it? Oh, okay, there it is. Thank you so much for the question. Before I reflect on it from the lens of the International Indigenous Peoples Forum on Climate Change, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Sabantho Corrie, which in the Lokono-Arawak language means beautiful little ground dove. I am a 23-year-old Indigenous woman living in an urban society outside of my ancestral community, a 240 square mile, 1,700 person ancestral Pakuri Lokono-Arawak territory in Region 4, Guyana, Northeast South America. I live in Barbados, another island nation altogether in the Eastern Lesser Antilles in the Caribbean. First, allow me to say that Indigenous peoples from all the 7 socio-cultural regions are already losing plenty. From the glaciers melting to the fast advancement of the desert, from the forest fires to the sea level rising, our communities are displaced and some of them forever from our ancestral lands. We are experiencing firsthand extreme weather events that are causing damages to our peoples, and we are losing our cultures, identities, and even our traditional knowledge. So to answer your question on how the wealth of traditional knowledge of Indigenous peoples contributes to addressing cultural heritage losses associated with climate change, in my own Indigenous community in Guyana, considered an extension of the Caribbean region, our Mahaika River used to flood once in a decade during the rainy season. But since 2019, flooding has occurred every single year, and now the dry seasons are drier and hotter. Farmers used to be able to work with exposed backs from 7 a.m. to midday, then take a 2-hour rest and put in another 3 hours till 5 p.m., then walk home. Now the sun and heat are so unbearable that they have to cover their skin and work shorter days due to the intense weather conditions. 25% of formerly productive hours are lost each day, with only 6 hours of labor possible, because no one lives on the tribal farmlands as they are many miles from the village. The deforestation of certain water catchment areas for farming have affected the quality of water in several rivers that are fed by multiple mountain streams. The traditional farming practices of land preparation for the cultivation of food is more unpredictable due to the changes of weather patterns. Usually farmers would cut down the land in the dry season around February or March and then plant in time for the upcoming wet season in May and June. But nowadays, the weather pattern is very different and now completely unpredictable. I would also like to highlight an example from the Amazon where subsistence agricultural practices have been affected by extensive rainy seasons and extensive dry seasons, as well as with the Sahel people of Africa who are already dying. To face these extreme events that affect our continuity of the regular planting and harvesting practices we use, our Indigenous people's traditional knowledge to prevent and face the consequences. In this case, the role of women is crucial, as in our communities, women are often the custodians of Indigenous knowledge, which has been passed down through generations. We provide an essential link between the natural environment and human society, and are responsible for, amongst other things, managing food security or maintaining crop diversity. But we are often more vulnerable than men to the impact of climate change, particularly in developing countries where we have limited access to resources, economic opportunities, and decision-making positions. This is particularly true for women living in rural areas who rely on natural resources for their livelihoods, or who face discrimination in accessing public services such as water, education, and healthcare. The spiritual connection of the collective connection between the inhabitants have allowed rebuilding their areas and expanding their knowledge to new generations. Thank you.
Thank you so much.